Amen. It was good, wasn't it, Pastor Jack's message? I'm here to talk about being a pastor, and God gave me this message. Every year I go to, for about the last 22 years, I've been going to Billy Brim Conference in Missouri. And I usually go to get a word for our church for the coming year. I didn't get that this year, but I got two messages that I've got to deliver, one today and one tomorrow. And so this message gave me the bones of it at that conference, and I've been putting meat on it since. I believe in for God to really minister to you as He ministered to me. If you will, just first off, my foundation text is out of Ephesians chapter 4. This text as a pastor changed my life when I realized what my real responsibility was to do. And so I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can read 11 through 16, but I'm just going to read the first couple of verses here. And it says, "And now these are the gifts Christ gave to the church: the apostle, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and the teachers. Their responsibility," hear this, please. Our responsibility is to equip God's people to do the work and build the church. That's our responsibility. When I got a hold of that, it changed my whole concept of ministry. I can remember when God first started calling me ministry, I was thinking, you get to preach, you do all this. But the job is not about the preaching or the teaching. It's truly about giving something to the people to equip them. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about the fact that my job as a pastor is to cast a vision into people and to let them see something in them that they don't even recognize. They may not recognize right now. A pastor must give himself or herself every day. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not a 40-hour work week. It's every day, 24 hours a day. It doesn't always happen like that, but you have to be there. You have to be prepared. Pastor Callahan cast a vision in each one of us speakers today. There's a piece of him that exists every time we get back behind a pulpit. And I'm evident. I'm reminded of that every time I preach. I can remember sitting in his church in Pekin, listening to him preach, and going, someday I'd like to do that. And I had no idea what that meant, other than I knew that inside of me there was something rising up. But as pastors, our job is to cast a vision to the people of the congregation. Luke chapter 22, verse 31 through 34 says this, "And and the Lord said, 'Simon, Simon, indeed, Satan has asked for you that he may sift you as wheat.'" Now listen to this next part. "But I prayed for you." And here's what he did. He says, "that your faith should not fail. And when you return to me, strengthen your brethren." Jesus spoke to Peter and said, here's what's going to happen, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen after that. There's the vision. Look beyond the struggle. Look beyond the failure. See what I've got for you ahead. Jesus saw he was his pastor, and so he was able to cast that vision into a young man that really hadn't lived that life yet. Think about Peter, and then what happened just a few days later when he went into the temple. He healed the person right there at the temple gate. He says, "Silver and gold I have none, but what I have I'm going to give to you." And he touched him, and he changed his life. Pastors are always visionaries. As a pastor, a pastor sees a giftedness in somebody. And our job is to speak that into existence in that somebody. I can remember when I was associate pastor at a church in East Peoria, and I'm walking down the hallway of our church. We were in an old school building. I'm walking down the hallway, and one of our youth pastor was coming up towards me, and she had with her a young man I had never met before. And his name's Pete. And we stopped and talked for a minute, and all of a sudden the Lord said, "He's going to be your next children's pastor." So I said, "Have you ever thought about working with children?" "Well, yeah, I have, but I said, "Well, you're the next children's pastor." But here's what happened to Pete. He became a national children's minister, working with some of the national ministries, excellent in what he did. Have a young lady in my church. I say she's young because she's younger than me, but everybody's younger than me anymore.
Amen. Good preaching. Good Preach it, Pastor.
I didn't expect all that applause. I turned 72 in 2 weeks. And I don't feel 72, and I know I don't look it, right? But the thing is that I have a young lady in my church. Let me get back to the subject. I have a young lady in my church, and we were getting our school established. We'd had a few classes already, and I went to Karen and I said, hey, I'd like you to teach Kenneth Hagin's book on healing. Well, right at that point in time, her husband was diagnosed with cancer, and he was dying, basically. Well, my thought was if I could get Dave to teach, to exercise that giftedness in him, the cancer would go. You know, a lot of times we let things take away the giftedness that God's put in us. And my goal was technically at first to get them to teach together. Well, she started teaching. And it's like all of a sudden God said, hey, she needs to be the head of your school. Well, and I'll talk about it in a minute, when you cast a vision into people, I say, you know what, Karen, you're going to be head of this school. She said, no, Pastor, no, just cool your jets. And so I said, okay, and I waited, and I said, when was it, Ashley, about after the first of the year? Watershed. Ashley finally said to Karen, will you just accept what he's trying to do, basically, take the role? Own it. That's right, she said, own it. Well, Karen was the perfect person. When God spoke that into me, I knew it. I saw it. And what happens when you cast your vision, my vision for the school, into her? Now she's running ahead. We'll talk about that in Habakkuk in a minute. She's running with the vision I had. And she's pushing me. She's that involved in that school. That's her life throng right now. There's so many others I could say that about because God has placed in me a long time ago this ability to speak into people's lives and say, this is what I believe you need to be doing. You know, it's interesting. You know, I talked about Pete. You know, the pastor may see it in a person, but that person still has to run with it. I can speak all day into Patty, but if she's not willing to run with it, then it's going to be dormant, and it's going to fold up on him. Pete doesn't even serve God anymore. He laid that gift aside, and it's all folded up in him. But I do know this, that it's resonant in him, and it's got to come back out. I know that. You know, the pastor sees the giftedness. As I was putting this together, I was saying about Karen, and I was thinking about a couple of people here. Because your pastor here speaks into your life speaks into the life of this congregation, and he watches as it comes out. Think about Diane. I've been coming here for a long time. Diane's always been quiet. Her husband, on the other hand, is sort of loud. But all of a sudden, that giftedness that's in her is erupting. And it's powerful. And her pastor is saying, do this. Pushing her. Saying, yes, step out into it. And I thought about Will. I don't know much about Will, other than he beat me up at homecoming. But he inspired in me something that I was dealing with stuff. God spoke to him and says, God told him, cast this vision into Pastor Bob. And it changed me. It changed my whole concept, my whole attitude. I wasn't old anymore, although you guys just thought I was. But it's like I wasn't ready to check out anymore, which I really wasn't, but that thought was there. Because I know what's ahead for me, glory. But I have a responsibility here, just like you have a responsibility here. Too many pastors can see a vision. They can see what a person's giftedness is and not cast a vision towards that giftedness because they're afraid of their territory. We've had some like that around here. We don't have it anymore, but we've had them. I won't name it, but I know people that are pastoring now that should have been pastoring years ago, but because of who they were with, they were too territorial. That's not the way it is in the churches now here. You know, a vision-casting pastor or apostle, leaders, their works extend into the kingdom. Think about Brother Hagin, Brother Copeland, Pastor Callahan. Pastor Callahan is very much a part of this because of what he did with those of us that are in this room. Think about your pastor here, Pastor Jim. Think about the vision he's casting, and everybody's coming along with it. Why? Because he's speaking to the giftedness of this church. He's speaking to the giftedness within the structure of Grace Ministries. And he's causing all of us to come along with it. Pastor Sherry, her ministry is beyond the four walls of Fairdale. And that's what it should be. It shouldn't be about here. This is a filling station. You've heard that before. But the thing is we have to get beyond the four walls if we're going to see the kingdom grow. It's not about growing churches. It's about growing the kingdom. We have asked people for years at our church to write down their vision at the end of every year for the coming year. We have a wall that's right outside my office that's vision of the people in the church, their visions of what God's calling them to do. I see you have a vision board sheet that's at the back there, and I gave it to Ashley. I said that we need to have something like this. Well, why? Because it looks good to me. Maybe it'll work for us. Keeping the vision of the ministry alive in people, let alone their giftedness. So how do we as pastors cast that vision? First off, we do the preaching. But preaching is not the end run of it, because at 45 minutes to an hour, Pastor Jack's church, 2 hours, I heard Lynn Hammond say that there's a sign at their church, he who preached short will be asked back. Pastor Jim extends stories on me that aren't true. We were asked to preach at a church in Illinois. It was some sort of conference. I don't remember the name of it. I had a poster for a while. But it's like, I got up to preach, and he said I preached 2 hours. I didn't preach 2 hours. I never preached 2 hours in my life. You did. It was 2.5 hours. See, it's grown again. But I never got asked back, so But preaching that little bit of time of preaching is not going to fulfill all of the needs or to extend the giftedness of that person to cast a vision. It also takes the teaching, as Pastor Jack said, through our lives, not necessarily through written down or things that we have to write down, but through the lives of the ministry teams. What called me into the ministry beginning was Pastor Callahan, Pastor Merlin, Pastor Gary, those pastors that were there, what they did and how they did it. I wanted to be like that. I think there's a song sort of like, let me be like, I want to be like that, or there's an old song like that. When the Lord's brought, where he's brought us from and where he's bringing us to. And it's a journey. Pastor Jim didn't start out as the apostle of this ministry, and maybe in his mind never thought he would be. But God had a plan. And he had all that work and all that labor that he did prior to this in the coal room and the other places, on the roofs. I can remember getting here, and I would see him just bustling about. He knew Pastor Callahan wanted something before Pastor Callahan knew he wanted it. But that ministry that was in him to be a leader in those areas is why he's leading like he is for the ministry of Grace Ministries. God had an assignment for him long before he knew it. And what he's done and how he's done it is inspiring. Look, just look at Pastor Eric. Pastor Jim's ceiling will be his floor, and it's becoming his floor very rapidly. He's that good at what he does. There's not a pastor in here that started out thinking, I'm going to pastor. It just all of a sudden came upon us. It was a ministry that just rose up in us. God never moves first, though. Let me read Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 9, because this is God's chess game with us. Anybody play chess? Nobody plays chess. Okay, well. Checkers, that's not chess. I'm going to come down and teach a class on chess. What? You're looking at me like what? You can't. Yeah, okay. Get sign-ups first. All right, listen. All right, so here, Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 9 says this. Now this is to us. Don't worry about anything. How many of you worry about things? Anybody in here? Okay, we'll be honest. I like honest people, okay? Instead, pray about everything. That's our move in this chess game. Now we just skip down to the first part of verse 7 says this, and then you will experience God's peace. That's God's move. He's waiting for you to stop worrying, to be understanding that he is going to make his move. But he's not going to move till you stop worrying. He's not going to do it until you pray about everything. Then the next move is the final move, because this again is ours. And the final thing, verse 8 says this: fix your thoughts on what is true, what is honorable, what is right, and pure, and lovely, and admirable. Think about these things that are excellent and worthy of praise. And now verse 9 says, is keep putting into practice all you've learned and received from me. That's Paul writing to the Philippians. Keep into practice. Remember what you've learned. Remember what I've taught you. If you'll do that, you'll win the chess game because God's on your side. The third point is counseling. How do we speak into people's lives? Through counseling. Counseling is not necessarily what you think it is. It's like I do an article. Did we get the articles? I didn't get the messages anymore. My articles that I wrote for you in 1 week. I wrote 2 in 1 week. Because I didn't write them for about 3 months. All right, let me get on beyond that. But counseling. Answering the honest questions. You know, as a pastor, many times people come in, it never fails. You get somebody just came to church the very first time, sermon's over, you're standing in the pulpit, they come up, and they say, I've done this, and this in another church, in other churches. I can do this for you. I said, well, that's really good. Nice, that's good. You know, and they never come back. But the ones that I know that they come up and there's something inside of them, I'll see it. And I'll say, you know what, hey, we got this going on. We got the school training going on. And I'll just have a speak into their lives that way because they're asking the honest questions. They're asking the questions that they need some help along the journey. Because again, that's what a pastor is. He's that guide along the journey. Just don't follow any shortcuts that Pastor Jack has because you usually get lost. You know, as pastors, we cast and then foster a vision in our people. In Mapleton, my first church that I pastored, in Mapleton, Illinois, it was a small church out in the country, and it was a little bitty town. There's only one church in town, and the Lord gave me a vision. It was a long line. He took me down to the church. There was a real long line going out the street, going back to the front door of the church and inside the church. Inside the church, it was crowded. In every corner of the church, there was some being taught on worship, some being taught on prayer, some being on preaching, and it's packed. And then I looked up, and the only other way out, you come in the front door, the only way door out is to go past the pulpit, up a few steps, and out the side door. And so we went that way, and all of a sudden this trail of people were going up around the hill and out of sight. And I asked God, I said, why aren't they staying? They see what's going on. Why aren't they staying here? And he said, because your job is to teach them and then send them out. And I'm not talking about everybody leaving and going to the missions field. Missions field's right outside these 4 walls. Your responsibility, your calling may be no further than a mile away at your job. My guess is that, I can't just drop this name. Olivia, where's she at? What's your son's name? Don't tell him. Yusuf. Don't tell him I forgot his name. But my guess, I can see his face, but I couldn't think of his name. All right. My guess is that Yusuf's mission field is Chick-fil-A. And he does an exceptional job at it. There's probably not because you see, you can't miss the joy in him. I mean, it just covers him. And so he works that mission field well. You know, so I asked the guy, so in Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 and 3 says this, then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain upon tablets that he may run with it that reads it. For that vision is yet to be for an appointed time. God gave me that vision in 1985. I have a granddaughter that lives down here now. And I'm really thankful she's not in Illinois anymore. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. She knows that. I see. There's a picture. I stayed at their mom and dad's. We were gone in September, and there's a shelf, and it has her and Kylie, just little cherubs, just beautiful little girls, and her and Carly's little dimples. And I don't eat after anybody except for Carly. We were at a wedding reception for Zach, I think. And I'm holding her. She's just a little thing. I'm holding her. She gets a carrot or something with dip on it, puts it in her mouth, sucks it off, and it sticks the carrot in my mouth. It still bothers me. She's the only person I've ever ate after in my life. Anyway, but I don't know why I told you that story. Just to let you know I love her. God said, let the vision for an appointed time, but at the end it will speak, it will not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come and not tarry. A vision is embedded in someone and will rise up out of them, and it will come at its appointed time. Yes. So I don't rush people. I didn't rush Karen. I gave Karen her time. I gave her a space. And I wasn't the last one to speak to her. It was Ashley said, just own it. You know it's right. You know what he's told you is right. You know where he's supposed to be. Just own it. And Karen is, like I said, started to run with it. When we settle with growing in numbers in the church, all we think about is the numbers. We're allowing ourselves to be go into an area of life that is called what was it? Drop that too. It happens when you get old, huh? I'm not old, Debbie. Mediocrity. And mediocrity is an area that is where the enemy can come in. Yeah. Our job is not about growing massive churches, it's about growing the kingdom. Yeah. It's not about having numbers in here, it's about changing people's lives. And that's a pastor's job, is to do what's right for that person. And it's an individual. Pastor Jim has a favorite phrase, we're in the people business, and business is good. Why is it good? Because our job as pastors is to minister. And it's something we always get to do. It's lovely. Even when it's rough, it's lovely. You know, we can't use growing a church as a measuring stick. Every enemy that's when the enemy can come in, he can destroy. He can destroy lives. We lose them one by one like that. We as pastors, God, can't get content. We must kick ourselves up to the next level. Yeah. We have to keep growing. Within every church, there are pastors being birthed, but they need to see a vision that's cast on them by the pastor. Because we're supposed to be visionaries as pastors. That's our main job, to see in you something you may not see already. But when you start to see it, you'll get a hold of it and you run with it. The Spirit is in me, Pastor Callan once, as I was coming off the old platform, he was sitting over here. And I don't remember what I had said. It was something like, I didn't feel right about, or this, that, and the other. He grabbed my arm as I walked by and said, stop. And he spoke something in my life that at that point, I heard it, and it centered in on me, and it just took time for it to mature me. He said, Bob, you have a place in this ministry. You've just got to find it. And it's at that time I started really realizing that we were a part of something that we were supposed to be a part of. You know, Ezekiel chapter 32, verse 22 through 24 says this, and when the hand of the Lord was upon me there, and he said to me, arise, go out into the plain, and there I shall talk with you. Now, the word arise has a couple of different meanings in Hebrew. But the one I want you to focus on is this one, go to your place. He told him to go to your place. Because each of us have a place in him that we belong. Rachel used to be a part of our church. And Thursday nights, Pastor Mike would show up at our church. Oh, I thought, well, that's good. He needs good teaching. and he'd stay a little, everybody's sort of clearing out, and just just be Pastor Mike and Rachel there. It takes me just a moment, but then I realize, something going on here. There is something, the visionary that I am. But I finally spoke to Rachel. I said, why are you still here? Well, I just thought, no, go. We don't want you here no more. Go. Let Mike have you as a problem, not us. Just teasing again. Please understand.
I was very nice while I was there.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were. She came down, started coming down because of our school.
While I was there.
I'm not sure what it's like now, but I know where I choose at my place. You're good. The thing is that Rachel didn't come from Galesburg to our school to knowing she's going to get married to Mike. They didn't know each other, but God had a plan. She had to take those steps to get to that plan. That's true of all of us. Arise, go to your place. Go to your place. When pastors cast a vision, in reality, they're challenging the people to go to your place. Go to your destiny. We teach a lot about destiny in our church in Illinois. Psalm 68, verse 1, Pastor Jack had verse 2, and I looked back to verse 1, I said, this says this, let God arise. Let God go to his place, and the enemy can't stay. Where's his place? His place is in the midst of us, isn't it? When he's in his place in us, the enemy can't stay. The victory's already won. Someone once said, up in Illinois, one of the pastors, we have a group of pastors meet with Watershed Ministry that we have, and one of the pastors, Mark Utek, said, there will be 40 million Christians that won't vote Tuesday or before Tuesday. And I thought, I'm not going to receive that. I'm going to see that drop by at least half. But if the church of God, the church of the living God, did its part all these years, we would not be having this type of election this week. I believe it comes back to the pastors not casting the vision into the people of God of what they have in them. It doesn't matter the part. At one point in time, the vision that started in Pastor Jim was, welcome to Grace Fellowship.
I was 12.
So,
I was 12 years old.
so Rob was doing Rob Westbrook's funeral. He's doing the graveside. And puberty hit then for him. In the middle of it. It was fun. Anyway, it says the thing is that go to your destiny. Go to it. Like send God to let God be. He says let the enemy scatter. Let those also hate him but flee before him. There's a lot of people out there that don't like God. Yeah. They're in for a rude awakening unless we do our part. My part, Pastor Jim's part. I almost said Pastor Jack can point at you. Pastor Jack's part. Pastor Mike. Anyone that is a pastor, our part is to speak into your lives, cast a vision that's already there, like Jesus did with Peter, and watch you run with the vision. But we have to arise. We first as pastors, you next as that are out there. The vision, the ministry that's in you, the destiny that's in you is sitting there waiting to erupt and to change the world in which you live. You know, casting a vision, I think, to people in the congregation is like being a dad or a grandpa. I'm the best grandpa there is. All my grandkids love me. I have a t-shirt to prove it. They didn't give it to me, but I had it made. That's exactly right. I was speaking it out.
You didn't even get one amen.
I know. I know. I got a laugh. She laughed. I heard her laugh good. The thing is that casting a vision into a congregation is like talking to your kids, your grandkids. Now my kids are all in their late 40s, or Rob will be 51 this year, so it's like they're all old. But my grandkids, I love casting a vision into them. I worked at a place one time as a counselor that I worked with kids. And so many kids that were in that system had nothing spoken over them but discouragement. You're not worthy. You're not this. And that just pricks right at my heart because that's what I was told when I was a kid. I was told as a high school counselor told me, you're not smart enough to go to college. I believed that for a long time. Now I have more degrees than she ever thought about having. But that doesn't make me smart. That doesn't make any. But the thing is for kids, I want to speak into their lives. I tell kids all the time, don't let anybody tell you can't do that.
That's right.
Don't let anybody ever discourage your dreams. I have a grandson. He's in 8th grade. He loves football. He's playing his first year of pads, tackle football. And he's talking about being in the NFL. He's not even on the starting team in 8th grade. Then I'm reminded of Grader, the movie Grader. Kid sitting there chomping on chips, and his brother comes in just trashing him. He had a goal, he had a dream, he had a vision. He's going to play for Arkansas. Anybody seen that movie? Yeah. And he makes it to the team as a walk-on because he worked hard at it, because he had a vision. Inside of him, he knew that was his destiny, and he helped lead that team to a national championship. So I think of that movie when I hear my grandson say the NFL. I'm not going to speak to his life and say, you can't do that. I'm not going to speak to his life and say, you're not good enough for that, because I don't know that. He may be the next great football player at Alabama. We have to cast a vision into the churches to go to their place. So I'm challenging here. Some of you I know, some of you I've met over the years. Some of you, if I had some time with you, I could probably say, here's what I see in you. But I'm not your pastor either. He is, or he is. Where's the other one? Or she is. Let them speak in your life and hear what they're saying. Go to your place, arise, and go to your place. Amen. Pastor Jack.